Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy cold, snowy, rainy, whatever else it is Tuesday. We're depending on where you're watching from. I am Dr. Cheryl Hall-Russell, and you are tuning in to what Black Pittsburgh needs to know. I am joined today by Miss Miracle Jones, who is the director of policy and whatnot for One Hood Media
and Advocacy.
Right. And we ain't talking about none of that today, right, Miracle? The show today is relationships, Rona, and relocation. So yeah, we are a little bit off our normal beaten path today, but we do a lot of work and conversations around well-being. We talk education and politics. We've talked COVID. What we haven't talked about is relationships, what it's like to be Black and try to find Black love in Pittsburgh, which is a challenge in itself. This show got lined up because we were on another show with some journalists. And at the end of that show, this thing slid into relationships and it just kind of blew up. And so we promised to come back and have that conversation. And so we have a cadre of characters who are going to be joining us later to dig in. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what we always talk about, Miracle, was what is going on with COVID. Our numbers are... they're pretty stable. Well, I think there have been 394 cases between Valentine's Day and back to January 2nd. And I'm hoping, I don't know what the weather's got to do with this, but hopefully they'll slow down a bit because the weather's been so friggin' bad. People are staying home. So, that's the hope. One of the interesting things I've been looking at, though, is this vaccine distribution. We have a habit of dragging the hell out of West Virginia, but they are number one in the entire nation in terms of distributing and administering the vaccines that they get. They got a 97% rate. The vaccines come in, they're going into somebody's arm. Pennsylvania, 7%. I don't know what's happening here. What are you hearing about why this is becoming such a problem?
There's been a variety of reasons why it's been issues. One, if we saw in Philly, we have people who do not have expertise, experience, or engagement with community members running the vaccine outreach. We still have seen a lot of people are hesitant to take the vaccine because there hasn't been a lot of there has been some engagement, but there has not been a lot of targeted engagement. So people still have questions about what's in the vaccine. There are still issues about how much is available in the supply and who is eligible. Some states have said teachers can get the vaccine. Other states, like here in Pennsylvania, have said, if you're elderly, if you're a smoker, if you're overweight, you are eligible for the vaccine. So there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of information with the vaccine on top of mismanagement. And so now we're seeing a lot of community organizers and a lot of community groups now doing the vaccine distribution, which is why West Virginia has been so amazing with their rollout, as they already allow these mom and pop shops who had already had community engagement and rapports to do the vaccine, which is what you need when you're taking a some medication that you're not really sure. You need people that you can trust, the people who will explain things to you, who can sit with you beyond the 15 minutes. And,
it's working. We're number 44, right behind Mississippi. So, I was listening today and, Dr. What's her name? Allegheny Health, Bolden. I just renamed that woman. I'm not slamming her. I know she's doing the best as she can. But, there was some conversation about the number of vaccines, was the supply. It was I just don't see, as a state, how that's explaining all of the problems that we're having. That's pretty low ranking. So anyway, I know they're trying to do their best. It appears the only place, the best way to get scheduled is to dial 211. The doses have been few and far between. It sounds like when people are calling, those appointments for vaccines are going just in nanoseconds. But right now, there looks like they're still just looking at people over 65 for vaccines, unless I guess just your frontline workers in hospitals and whatnot. But keep trying, y'all. If you're over 65, hit 211. Keep trying to get your vaccine if that's what you want to do. But again, we are not trying to push anybody to do anything outside of their comfort level. But if getting a vaccination is what you want to do, use 211 to get there. Some people can't make it because snow and ice seems to be dominating and trying to take us out around this country. What's up in Georgia? You got little flakes down there too?
We did it. We had little flakes. We had some a winter weather warning for like black ice. But again, when we talk about leadership, and I'll put on my Dr. Bay hat, but we have the crisis of leadership and innovation. It's not like we didn't know winter weather was coming. And so whether it's the thousands of people in Texas who are doing a power outage, who literally do not have running water, it's the people right now in Pennsylvania who are like encamped in their homes because the salt trucks haven't come. We are dealing with a failure of city leaders, state leaders to work together, to cooperate, to share the resources with salt trucks and the shoveling and all the stuff. And now here we are, just the failed nation state who can't figure out how to get people vaccines or to clean roads. I mean,
and it has serious, that crazy accident in Dallas. I mean, it's 130 cars, and I've got family in Dallas, and they clearly said they knew it was coming. And I guess they have the truck that went out and threw some sand out 2 days ahead of that. And now 6 or 7 people are dead. And these pileups, I mean, it's just bizarre to even watch how many of these accidents are going down. And I do know this is slightly unusual, but it's snow, it's winter, and here it is.
But I think this is what happens when you have elected officials who are determined to not invest in social support for their community members. Because if we knew it was snowing, what would it have looked like if we all had like our groceries and investments on Saturday so we would be able to stay home the next 3 or 4 days? People are going outside because they have to work, because they don't have sick days, they don't have sick leave. Companies are not closing down. So in this cycle of capitalism, people are forced to go outside their homes right now, and it's just going to continue to get worse. On top of that, we have COVID-19, we have the flu season still here, and we're now looking at potential super spreader events after yesterday, because people were trying to come home after Valentine's Day and doing all the stuff that people did on over the weekend, and now getting accidents just trying to get home.
Oh Lord, that's a heck of some connections that you just made there. You're just going to work and hoping that you get there. So what else is going on around the nation that is grabbing your attention?
Well, the lovely impeachment, that went. I don't understand why we had an impeachment trial in less than a week and just wasted time, resources, and energy if we weren't going to do an actual investigation. Once again, Democrats have to figure out if they want to be a party that leads or a party that just wants to go along to get along under the guise of unity by throwing Black and brown people to the wayside. I don't have words to describe what the impeachment trial was, whether the lawyers stealing the coasters or him intentionally saying that he acted incompetently to make sure the media portrayed his actions instead of the facts of the case.
You said he did it, that he was being incompetent on purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, that dude was just incompetent, period. It was, I watched as much as I could, but quite frankly, when the defense came on, I was like, I just couldn't. Because we knew where it was going. You're an attorney. What was the what do you think was a reason? Yeah, well, okay.
Yes,
we'll give you 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think that we will say that this is one of the most bipartisan votes. They did have over 50 people vote to impeach. And Kahari mentions the person yesterday who said, they didn't believe that they were going to get the votes. But increasingly, they got 57 votes because people started seeing the facts. When Mitt Romney realized he was about to get a beat down, that kind of changed his tone of voice.
He saw himself on video running down the hall, getting saved by that brother, right?
Yeah, and so I think that if we actually got to see the facts, because I just want to know I'm not really concerned. The president, of course, is going to do what he's got to do to stay in power. But I want to know, what did the military know? What did the police know? And what was their role in all of this? And if we're not going to have these investigations, what's going to say that we're not going to keep having insurrections the next 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, the new brother that's over defense has been talking about rooting out racism in the military. But how do you do that? I mean, what does that plan look like? I don't even. I mean, he realizes they got trouble with a huge. What was it? 40% of the people involved in that insurrection had some military background. So that's kind of scary. You know, we always are talking about other countries and military overthrowing governments and all of that. I think we got our own issues to take care of at home.
Fact. And talking about issues, the Biden administration just had a conversation about gun safety, and they didn't have any Black-led organizations in the meeting. So when we're talking about how to eradicate, supremacy and people with bias, if you're not even inviting Black people into the room or impacted people into the room, you're just literally putting Band-Aids on wounds and hoping you can stop the spillover for the next 3 years, when now is the time to have innovative solutions to deal with these long systemic problems.
Maybe you should have watched our show a couple of weeks ago on guns, because who's buying them, who's owning them, that's us. And when I say us, I'm talking about Black women in particular. And so you're going to have that conversation and not have us at the table. I missed that one. So let's talk a little bit about how LAPD decided to enjoy their Valentine's Day. You want to, did you see that, the lovely little card?
I did. And there are no words. Like, in a global pandemic, when people are thinking about surviving, how is it that you have the time, the capacity, the audacity to basically write a Valentine's Day card with George Floyd and mocking somebody's Black life? Like, if in the time of a global pandemic, when you don't even know if you're going to be here the next 24 hours, the fact that you have energy to make fun of someone dying, it just shows how evil the system of policing is, and how, when we talk about you can't reform people by just throwing money at the situation, this is what we're talking about. Like, how do you reform that?
I don't know how many bias classes one would need to take to know that that is inappropriate. And because you're dealing with people's souls and their guts. When you do something like that and you are so dismissive, I mean, what did it say? It had I can't breathe. It said, I mean, there were multiple things. Then they just passed this really disgusting document around the LAPD. And of course, they're all we're going to get the people who did it. But it's just symbiotic of the depth of the problem, that you can be this callous and cold. The separation between people, people in the police is so massive, that chasm. The simplistic things that we hear talked about, better community interaction, let's start a PAL program. Let's do, it is not beginning to get to the gut of the relational issues that we're having. I mean, I saw this spill out yet again. We almost had another Breonna Taylor incident in, of course, Florida, in Jacksonville, when this sister and her boyfriend are in the house. She hears somebody kicking at her door. She grabs her gun, shoots at the door. In meantime, she's calling the police, saying they're breaking at my house. And come to find out, it's the police. When, of course, they weren't required to have a no-knock warrant. What they said they did is that they had a bullhorn out on the street, and she should have heard them. Meantime, they have ripped the house basically apart, pulling off windows and everything else. She hit somebody's vest, and he gets a bruise. She's locked up on $565,000 bond for attempted murder of a police officer. What?
Again, we don't need these rates. At this point, we need a whole new system where we can figure out how to contact folks and bring them in for questioning. There is no guarantee that someone outside is going to hear you. Now we got headphones. We're in a pandemic. People are at home. They're on Zoom. They're learning. They're working. They may be asleep. There is no way you're always going to hear this stuff. And when people start shooting back, maybe it's a time to say, you know what? Something in the system isn't working. It's not safe for the police officers. It's not safe for citizens who are in their home. And again, you having what is you having the wrong address going to do for me now that I've already have people, strangers I don't know who've broken in?
Oops. I mean, and that's where it is. And I mean, they are going after this sister hard. So what I did like is the National Bail Fund Network, the Minnesota Freedom Fund, and Dignity Power. They raised the money to get her out. But the question was, why was they were in there about some weed? Why was the bail that high? She had no idea who was coming in her door. And you could hear her on the phone talking to the police saying, I don't know who this is. Send somebody. They're breaking in my house. So it is quite clear. You're not going to hit 911 if you know the police are coming in your door and then shoot them. That's just not, it's logically not working. But, every time we think this is the last one, every time there's the march, there's a hope. But anyway, I don't want to stay on this too long because we're supposed to be talking about love today, and it's going to make me not want to. I want to start this off a little bit, well, maybe not in the most loving way, but I want to bring up a picture. The UN Women put out a Valentine graphic over on Valentine's Day to look at that, showing all this love. Now, what do you notice about this? The sister's by herself. So, to say the least, they took this down pretty quickly after they got some backlash. But I think it is just symbiotic with how people look at Black women and are we lovable?
It's sad but true because we gotta love ourselves. We gotta pick each other up. We gotta support each other. But this makes absolutely no sense. When you're making a post that's meant to be inclusive and loving, you a caricature of a Black woman, and having her love herself when everyone else gets to be loved and validated and appreciated. And the fact that this was on once again a national, and again, there's nothing
international.
There's nothing wrong with loving yourself, but when it's a repeated narrative that the media tries to portray Black women, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this show. Because it's like, no, Black women are lovable. Black women can be in relationships outside of these like one-off situations. And it's very problematic that this is the UN who's doing this, right? The largest human rights organization.
That was just crazy. I want to bring in
African nations as
right. We're gonna have some folks come in and talk to us about this. Jordan Hicks is coming to us from warm parts. I'm not even sure I'm speaking to her because she doesn't have snow right now. But Jordan Hicks is with the Source podcast. She's coming in. We're talking to Heather Hobson, who is presenting Single Mom Defined on this one. And we're going to be talking to Naomi Ritter, who's with Urban Kind and also with the Finesse Institute. Looks like we're having some challenges. There you all are. Hey guys, welcome. So some of us, Naomi, unmute. Some of us were on a conversation, which is how this came about. People are like, why y'all talking about Black love? Well, Jordan, it was you and Naomi and Janelle and I. We were on a conversation about, I think it was around journalism, and we were talking. And then it went to dating in Pittsburgh. And then it just... We went off the air, and an hour later we were still talking about it. And so we promised that we would come back. So what did you guys think about the picture I just popped up?
So before I criticize, I usually try to start from a place of understanding and say, where was this person coming from? Maybe this person did some research on Twitter, on social media, and said like self-care is a really big phenomenon right now in terms of like the community of Black women across the world. Maybe they were trying to portray that, but at the same time, being partnered with someone and practicing self-care, like those aren't mutually exclusive. Like you can do those at the same time. So I just feel like if you have to like explain the graphic, then the graphic is not good. And maybe this is more like Naomi's lane because she's into like graphic design and websites and everything. But it just seems that when it comes to clearly expressing the worth and value, inherent worth, and value of Black women, that people, the media, the entities that be continue to fall short. And I don't understand how and why. I mean, I know why, but like how and why when there are so many examples of the possibilities of how to express that.
Very nicely done. Very balanced response, Jordan.
Journalism.
I know. She's like politically correct.
Right.
You know, honestly, sometimes sorry, I can't even get my words. Now that I'm really deep in you know, like design and graphics and web, you realize how intentional it is, how intentional the process is. And so for me, it's like, y'all knew what y'all were doing when y'all made that post. I almost can hear the jokes that y'all were making when y'all were like, oh yeah, we're going to make her a strong Black woman because, you know, Black women are so strong. And so I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But that was really sort of what I felt when I saw that, like, oh, we're going to make this Black woman just hugging herself because they don't need nobody. They don't need no man. That's like the jokes that I heard. And I hope I'm wrong with this. But you really realize how intentional people are when they're creating and when they're designing. Like, you chose for her skin to be that dark. You chose for her arms to be in that position where she's hugging herself endearly. You chose to put her on the end, not in the middle where she's the center focus. Like, this was all intentional, and we see it at face value, and we're like, oh, you know, another image of a Black woman that's not positively representing us. But this was all intentional. So it's hurtful. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, okay, there I am again. There we are again, just in the corner trying to console ourselves because, you know, we're too tough, too strong, too whatever to need a man. So that's my genuine response to it. I felt like it was intentional, and it was like they were making a joke. And it really hurt my feelings, to be honest.
But I don't know, Heather, as we look at this, I mean, one of the conversations that we're having is dating in Pittsburgh. I literally was in Pittsburgh 2 weeks before somebody said to me, sis, if you plan on dating or remarrying, you need to move now.
Yep.
It was 2 weeks. I was in town for 2 weeks. And one of my first lunches, and that's what somebody told me, girl, I hope that's not what you're planning on doing because you're not going to do it here. So is there a little bit of truth to, you know, this is just how we're seen, at least inside of Allegheny County?
No, I mean, I want to say, for me personally, most of my sister circle is married. They're in healthy, loving relationships. Those who are not, some want to be single, and some have exited unhealthy or abusive or toxic environments. And I guess preface before we dive into this conversation that it is okay at any age, at any stage, to be single.
Absolutely.
Black women that were always attacked when we're single. Like recently, I don't know if you guys saw the article with Halle Berry, and they were like, well, you can't keep a man. And her response was hilarious because she was like, how do you know I'm trying to keep a man? So why is it that we're looked at as though something's wrong with us? There are so many positive, beautiful, loving relationships. My parents have been married for 50 years. My grandparents, my sister got a divorce, got back with my brother-in-law. So, I mean, there's so many happy endings, and happy endings can also include being single. Right now, I'm building a business. I have friends, but my time is focused on myself, my child, and my business. So, like, we shouldn't always look at being single as like, oh, so negative. You can't keep a man.
I know a lot of happily single people. I think the conversation we were having that really sparked some of this is when folks were saying we love our work, because I'm around folks here that love what they do. I have never been around so many advocates that you almost have to be if you're going to survive here. And so people launching businesses, you know, half of us on here are business owners. And so I think we have figured out that part. And, you know, I don't wake up in the morning thinking, oh, there's nobody in my life. So you're right. I'm happy. However, some of the conversations have been, but when I want to, the choices are not there. And when I hear younger women talking about leaving the city of Pittsburgh to pursue, if they ever want to get married and have kids, that's not a one-off. I hear that a lot. So I'm not sure. Miracle, what's at the bottom of this? How do we cure it?
Wait a minute. I don't know his cure. But I do think we have to talk about the systemic issues about Pittsburgh and why some Black professionals are leaving. I know Dr. Bay was talking about I think it's like an average 3 Black people leave the city. This has been voted as one of the worst places for Black women to actually live based on a variety of factors, including healthcare and access to home ownership. And so I think the city of Pittsburgh is really cool, but it's very small. I came here in 2015 and was at the tail end of ending a relationship because I was like relocating, and I didn't realize how small it was. I was used to, usually you meet somebody and then you don't meet their family members for like a couple of months or 6 months down the road, but like you meet somebody on Tuesday, you may be sitting at, a restaurant the next day next to their parents on, it's a lot, it really is a lot. And if you're not serious about things, then you have to worry about creating a reputation for yourself as you like move and get to know folks. And so it was just a very different situation. So I don't know what the cure is, but I think the reality is that this is a situation where we are very connected, very interconnected, and it's very hard to like find yourself through dating if you're trying to be private or if you're trying to develop who you are.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, I remember you saying something about that, being raised here, everybody kind of knowing each other and, everybody's dating history already. And, that you felt that was part of the challenge.
So I was like crying a little bit on the inside when Miracle was talking because it's so true. It's so true. Like there's probably, and I say this all the time, there's probably 1.5 to 2 degrees of separation between each Black person in the city of Pittsburgh. Like everybody's your cousin. You went to middle school with them. I used to date your brother. I used to date your sister. Like it's very, very small. It's very interconnected. But in terms of like the reasons why dating, I guess came up in the conversation that we were having, which was how Pittsburgh shapes and cages the lives and experiences of Black women, is that dating is a part of the quality of life for people. We're humans. We need human interaction and human connection. And so when it comes down to deciding who you would like to bring into your life, who you would like to expand and fill your life, I think that when it comes to Black women, the same can be said for what's happening in professional spaces, which is that we're being asked too much to accommodate and to kind of take on things that we may not want or we may not value. Maybe some people, like Heather was saying, are comfortable being single, right? Maybe there are some people who want to have a specific kind of relationship that doesn't necessarily fit the traditional box that Pittsburgh presents for how to have a relationship or who you should have a relationship with. I think that we also have to look at the things that are impacting the decisions or inspiring the decisions that people are making. When you're living in a city where it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have health issues, that you may become incarcerated, you're going to have a hard time finding a job. Who's thinking about being in love? I'm trying to survive. Who's trying? Right. I mean, people have been lucky enough to find their soulmates and to find their partners that they're building their lives with. But I think we have to be serious and specific when we look at the reasons why people are making the decisions that they're making, and also understanding that some people are comfortable being forever single or dating casually for life and not making those long-term commitments.
Yeah, I mean, what somebody said here, it's a quality of life issue. I was tongue in cheek about why we're doing a love show, but it really is a quality of life issue. My daughter we were laughing. She said, "Mom, you were always kind of involved in activism before, but since you came to Pittsburgh, the level of it, and part of that is surviving Pittsburgh. I mean, and so you kind of have to fight for your space here, but part of that, you need that balance in your life if you choose to have that in terms of relationships. I mean, I roll deep with my girls and it's awesome, but if I was looking for some other option, 10 years into this game, I would have, had to roll out.
Mm-hmm. And I was just going to say one thing that I had mentioned when Jordan, Janelle, and I were on camera was that one of the ways that Pittsburgh can support Black women is by supporting Black men. Obviously, I'm speaking in terms of hetero relationships, if that's what you choose. But even if it's not an emotionally or like a sexual relationship, supporting Black men is essential to the essence of supporting Black women, because one, unless you are a woman choosing to date a woman, who are you going to date? You're going to date a man. There was a guy on the street. This is random, and it's going to be a quick story. He was from DC, and this was many years ago, probably when I was in college. He said to me, he was like, man, Pittsburgh, y'all got some bomb ass Black women, and y'all just be committed to the guys. The guys ain't shit, but y'all, the women is bomb. I don't know why y'all be so loyal to these Pittsburgh guys. And I was just like, dang, bro, like, and so it's like, I see, so look at all of us on the screen, all of us behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. I see so many popping Black women in Pittsburgh. And I'm not saying that I don't see that with the men, but it's definitely, you can count, it seems as though. And then everybody, you know what I mean? We already know each other. We're friends, we're family, we're whatever. But I think we really just need to be more intentional about supporting Black men as well. So we can feel like we have people, options, you know what I mean? Like resources and people to talk to.
So what does that mean though? What does supporting Black men mean?
So if I could just bring this up like really, really quick, I think that for me, I don't think the linchpin in change in my life is rooted in Black men. I want Black men to prosper. I want them to heal. I want them to be great. I want them to be awesome. But at the same time, I think the focus needs to stay on Black women and femmes, because at the same time, the paradigm, the system that we are under in Pittsburgh is male dominated. Right. And so I think that in terms of Black women getting more power and more say in making decisions that reflect their true intent and true desires, that we need to pay attention to the ways that having a male-centered, cisgendered centered kind of like perspective and like system and outlook on how relationships are supposed to work and who can make them the first move and commitment and yada, 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 we have to kind of shift who that empowers and who that leaves out and who got to make those rules before we start saying like I said, hi Black men, we love y'all, we support y'all, we want y'all to heal, what's up? At the same time, like my existence exists outside of Black men.
We need healing too, right?
Right. I think that for like some people who want the Black love story, right, it's very hard to do that in this region just because the numbers aren't there. We got to be honest. The numbers just aren't there. And so like if our city developers aren't actively recruiting Black people to come to the city to actually create that culture of that and the livelihood that we need, we're not going to get it no matter where you fall on the Black love spectrum. Every person I've talked to, regardless of their sexuality, is like Pittsburgh has like maybe like 5 people, like you know what I mean. And it's very. We're at the point where we like give referrals out to other people, like okay, well this person's gonna go and will treat you well for a couple weeks. If you want to, it's very weird how we have these conversations where I never really had those conversations before, and it's like kind of funny. But I think a lot of people are single because they have an idea of love that they deserve. And unfortunately, the city cannot physically provide it because we don't have the numbers or the infrastructure. And we look at, Pittsburgh being the city that has rebuilt. A lot of people are transplants. And a lot of the people that you are recruiting are transplants or international students. But if you are not encouraging people to stay here, you're not encouraging people to like actually allow love to grow and prosper, so we don't have these steady relationships.
I'm going to interject. Oh, go ahead, Heather, and then I'm going to interject something in a second.
Quickly, you're right. I mean, there's more Black women, beautiful, Black, bright, educated, professional women than there are Black men. But I don't think that's necessarily just Pittsburgh, right? You can go to Atlanta, you can go to DC, you can go to Chicago. There's going to be higher percentages of gay men, higher percentages of married men, higher percentages of men in relationships. So sometimes I don't think it's necessarily the place, but perhaps the person. Sometimes things don't work because, you know, I'm not at that place in my life, or that person hasn't healed from trauma. It's so complex. But I also want to remind people, we don't have to stay in Pittsburgh when we date. You can date online. My daughter's dad lives in New Jersey, and we had lived together in DC at the time. But now that I was here as a single mom, I had to drive and go every month to New Jersey. What did I do? I dated in Philly. I dated in New York. And I know everybody can't make that commute. But I mean, we're what, a couple hours from Cleveland. Columbus isn't very far. Meet in the middle. Zoom. We can't really go and
I've done it.
Do a Zoom date.
Absolutely.
But options, and there aren't lots of. Let me tell you, there are Black men out here. They're sometimes in my Facebook inbox, in my friends' DMs. I mean, they're here. So I don't want to put
Heather, when you say out here, you mean outside of Pittsburgh?
No, out.
Okay.
Available.
I said they're here. They outside.
Listen, Heather, I don't know.
There are Black men. Maybe not
Heather.
as women. Listen.
Let me tell you something we've been talking about.
And my date was popping. There are Black men available.
Well, maybe we need her advice. We're gonna write to her, because we laugh all the time about forgetting that we're women when we live in Pittsburgh. I leave here, go to Atlanta, or go back to Indy, go to Cleveland, go to Philly, and somebody says something to me, and I'm like, what? You know, I have completely am rusty on how to even have the exchange. I get sense, and I'm like, who, me? Did I drop my purse? What happened? You know, because I have never lived anywhere. Keep in mind, this is my sixth city. 6 cities, and I lived out of the country. I have never had this experience in any of them. And of course, I'm not 22, and I'm sure the young people on here are like, is she old? Ain't nobody gonna date her. But trust me, I'm still dating, and I'm still interested in it. And I've never been in such a blank kind of space before. And I do think some of it is peculiar. Now, it may not be so much peculiar to Pittsburgh. Maybe it's a smaller city thing. I don't know. This is the smallest city I've ever lived in. So maybe that's it. I don't know.
It's the worst place for Black women. So living here, it's one of the worst places for Black women. That is very heavy on my spirit, right? So I think Black women have to lift each other up. We're complimenting one another. I'm looking in the mirror like I'm the righteousness of God. We were designed in His image. Like, we are the blueprint for all of this. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves that how valuable we are, even when our city doesn't value us. Like, my friends are beautiful and bright, and, you know, let people know that you're single, and that if you want to date, if that's what you choose to do. My friends that are married, they know, you know, so it's like, it's unconventional, right? Because you might have to go on Match.com. You might have to go. I met a producer at Atlantic Records on Match.com. So sometimes you have to probably put in
Match.com.
Crazy because I was copy and paste text. Somebody was like, you sending the same selfies to me. And then I turn around, it's on Facebook. I really can't do, at this state in my life, I can't really do the online. It's a lot. It's a lot of energy.
I can't do online. I can't do the Match or the Tinder or the Farmers Only or the Christian Mingle.
Not blackpeoplemeet.com, Miracle. No, Black People Meet.
Farmers Only wasn't that bad.
Go ahead. Facebook has Facebook dating. I can't. It's like, because I have to block people. It's too much. Too many apps. But
in the comments, folks, what works?
No, so we're gonna bring some guys in a minute. But I wanna give a quote.
Okay, I will say, I enjoy dating, and y'all can take that for what it worth. I have slid in DMs. But like also, it's very weird to go out to dinner at restaurants and have people like stare at you, like because you go to certain places and they're like, "Why are these Black people here at this establishment?" So there's like a lot of that pressure that people deal with. But I think also because we're so small, you have to be very intentional about creating the privacy for your relationship, because I've also watched people post relationship photos
and then I'll be gone next week.
3 weeks max.
It seemed like as soon as you leave Pittsburgh, you hit the on switch and you just turn up. Like, and I'm just like, it's like the switch is flipped. I'm telling y'all, man. Like,
before we bring the guys in, I want to do a quote from the great theologian Damon Young. And it's from an article he wrote back in 2019. And maybe this is part of the challenge. He wrote a piece in The Root called A Very Short Case for Why Pittsburgh is the Blackest City in America. And in it, he said, but try being unapologetically Black in a city that attempts to shuffle Blackness away wherever it has the opportunity to. We don't have the luxury of easing into Blackness, of finding quick comfort, of lazing immediately into immediately friendly spaces. If you want to be Black in Pittsburgh, you need to be effing intentional about it. You need to research, you need to procure, you need to excavate, you need to Google. You just can't roll out of bed and decide to walk to a Black restaurant, to enroll in a Black school, or have drinks at a Black club and drive through a Black neighborhood. No, you need a plan, you need intent, you need desire, you need hypercognizance of your Blackness needs to be perpetual when you exist in a space that wishes to spread mail on it.
Facts.
You know what? In the name of Black love, shout out to Damon Young and Alicia Young, because that's Black love right there.
Right there.
Okay, so honorable mention, y'all two.
Right, he was going back in his memory about, what it was like. But I mean, there's so many jewels in that. Before we go any further, though, I want to bring in, we got a couple of guys here. We want to bring in Farouk and Treble. And I really want them to kind of respond to what they're hearing. These are two single but dating young men. And, again, we're all ages. We're hitting the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, 50 plus. And so what are y'all thinking when all this is being talked about?
Y'all have me dying over here. I was just over here just cracking up. I don't know if y'all see me in the chat, like not the Match.com ad. Who's going crazy? But I do want to touch upon what you just read from Damon Young about being intentional, because me and my girlfriend, we're at 2 years now, you know what I'm saying? And when I first came across her, I was extremely intentional. I'm like, yo, this girl is beautiful. I want her in my life some way, somehow. I don't know if we're going to be dating or friends, but I was like, let me play my cards right. You know what I'm saying? I seen her on Tinder. I didn't hit her up on Tinder because I knew that only led one direction. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, let me wait. Let me chill. I seen her IG was connected to it. I followed her IG and I started to kind of just like watch. I'm like watching her stories, trying to see like what kind of conversation I could start with her that won't be like weird, that won't be like flirty, like that won't kind of scare her away. And then I seen that she's into psychology. I'm like, I'm into psychology. She posts a story about it one day and boom, conversation happens. We started talking, casual conversation. And then I'm still like, let me ease off the gas a little bit. Let me not make too many crazy moves. So I'm like, hey, I see you're in Pittsburgh. Can we hang out? Maybe go grab a cup of tea or something? She's like, sure. We meet up. I wanted to make a very particular first impression. So I wore this shirt that said ugly on it. And I'm like, you'll know it's me when you see a guy in an ugly shirt. And I pull up. The first thing she says is, wow. Of course, it's literally an ugly shirt. And now we're here.
The rest is history. What did you guys take away from this? The intentionality. What were you thinking over there, Farouk? What were you responding to most? Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Make sure you didn't click the mute button. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I thought first off, let me clear the air before Cheryl gets me killed. I'm not single.
Right.
So before,
You're
so
No, I said that the guys were dating, they were with somebody.
What's interesting to me though is someone is not from Pittsburgh, and not even remotely close to Pittsburgh as a native. I've been here for 10 years now, but the city has always been a very interesting place when it comes to dating because I've heard nothing but complaints. Like, to just kind of echo what all the sisters on the panel have been saying. And even further, what's more interesting is all my friends that got married in Pittsburgh are now divorced.
Wow.
So it's very interesting. And this is white and black. None of them have been successful at marriage in Pittsburgh. I've seen some success when people go outside the city. What I have always found interesting about the city of Pittsburgh when it comes to dating is just, what's already been said is that everybody knows each other. It's like, oh man, I went to high school with your girlfriend. I'm like, oh, okay, bruv. Before you say something that's gonna get your teeth removed, say something nice. You get me? Or just don't say nothing at all, right? And I found that to be like a really reoccurring thing. Is like everybody has kind of like shared the same partners. Me personally, I'm cool with that. Like, that don't really bother me. It's like, I don't care who you was fucking before me. If you fucking me now, we're good. Like, that's just where I stand with it. I mean, I'm just saying, you get me? I'm like, but I've noticed that there's a trend.
Always trying to get people canceled every show.
I mean, listen, I'm gonna keep it funky as a skunk for it. You get me? Listen, let me take the specs off so I can be serious. But I've noticed that there's a huge trend of insecurity amongst men in Pittsburgh. That is one of the things, and I've had to call a lot of my friends on it. A lot of them are insecure, and the issue, I think, is that like I keep all my personal relationship to me and my partner. Like, it's not gonna be on social media. None of that shit is you're not gonna see none of that. Like, you're not gonna see me in pictures, none of that, because like I don't like the idea of inviting the world into my relationship. I feel like the moment you do that, that's when you open the door to problems, or you open up your inbox to problems, quite literally. About the insecurity aspect though, a lot of men have a lot to say about what they think women should and shouldn't be. And I think that's a conversation a lot of niggas really can't come to terms with, because it makes them question their own masculinity. And that's a struggle within Pittsburgh. And I forget who it was that said Pittsburgh should support black men. I agree with that. I agree 100% with that. However, I think black men need to support black men. It's not a city's job to really support black men. It's not. Women have been supporting black men for so long. And it's not your responsibility. The moment they kind of grow up, your obligation is kind of done. You get me? It's kind of like, you got to figure it out sometime, my nigga. So now would be a great time to do it, and stop relying on people to do it for you. So, I mean, I know I'm kind of going on about this, but this is a topic that I found myself, like, a lot of my friends come to me for relationship advice, and I don't really feel comfortable giving relationship advice on a panel because, listen, I'm not Dr. Phil. I'm not Steve Harvey. I'm none of them, man. But on a one-on-one level, I could build with you about, I found out things in 2020 about myself as a person, as a partner. Outside the fact that I already know I'm extremely arrogant and tough to approach, but I'm also like, I have a lot of traumas that I haven't healed from that I didn't know until 2020. And it wasn't until I was in a quarantine with someone, I'm like, oh shit, I need a lot of work. I'm a terrible human being. Like, I need years and years of therapy. So like, I found this out just kind of like at the drop of a dime. And I was like, oh shit, I should probably help myself before I hurt somebody.
Hello.
But the thing is, not a lot of men are comfortable with saying that.
Right.
You hear me? Like, it's bare men out here that can't say, I need help.
Yeah.
Right?
That's huge.
And that's the thing, is I think people look at hyper masculine men as always trying to overcompensate with something. And I used to think that was a lie. I wouldn't exactly consider myself hyper masculine, but I'm not someone I'm not going to invite people to help me, but I will ask you for help, if that makes sense. You get me? So yeah, I think it's just, there's a lot of interesting dynamics when it comes to, and again, I'm from Toronto, Canada, which is one of the largest cities in the world. So there's 8 million people in my city. So dating looks completely different. Like, oh yeah, I could date someone and in the same neighborhood and they would never see each other. That's just how Toronto works. I've lived in New York and I've lived in London, where they're also global metropolises. So dating looks different. So when I came to Pittsburgh, I was like, oh, this is icky.
In front of my house really... to carry on.
No, you good. But yeah, I'm gonna put a stop in that.
If I may add, I think what you're saying is very, very important. When we're talking about dating in Pittsburgh and Black love in Pittsburgh, Black love isn't just like dating and loving someone who's Black, right? It's realizing that your Blackness comes with a history, it comes with a trauma, it comes with certain realities that we have to work through individually and then work through together as a couple or circle, however you're doing it, to love each other. And that specifically in Pittsburgh, we're not having enough of those conversations with our elders, with our peers, with each other across the bounds of gender and sex to say, this is what it means to love me, and this is what it means to love me as a woman. Because I am
Absolutely.
a woman, because I'm a woman doesn't mean I come with certain things. That just means I am a woman, and it's up to you to learn and understand or agree to be around me as I express myself and who I am. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be argumentative or bossy or the stereotypes that we attach to Black women. And I think we do need to have more open conversations about what relationships look like in this city and how trauma has shaped them, how hypermasculinity has shaped them, how the over-sexualization of Black bodies has shaped them, and then say, are these healthy relationships to be in? Is this a relationship that I want to engage in? We can all go on our personal Facebook and Twitter feeds and see how many of our peers and counterparts and cousins and neighbors and aunts and uncles or whoever on a daily are saying to us that Black women or Black men don't deserve love if you do this, if you have this, if your hair is nappy, if you ain't cute, if you ain't, like all of these things, if you have a degree, if you don't have a degree. And I think until we come to terms with what culture is telling us about how to love each other and how to be in relationship with each other, then we're going to continue to have this chasm of why are people single? Why aren't people getting married? Why are women this? We have to be real about the minutia that is at the bottom of what's inspiring the foundations for what we're building these relationships on.
100%.
I want to speak on that because that right. Oh, sorry.
No, I'll be real quick. I just want to say, Jordan, first of all, I love the words that you use. And I really appreciate the fact that you said the community and looking at love as a culture, because I wonder how many of us as a community support love amongst each other. How much, like, I'm thinking about other cultures where they set each other up, you know what I mean? Or if even like they have someone, and it may not be the most appropriate ways, but do we as a community support communal love? Do we support helping our sisters and helping our brothers finding love for someone else while we also find love for ourselves? I think we share a lot of things, but I don't know if the love is one of those. Go ahead, Cheryl. I just wanted to say that real quick.
So I wanted to speak on like that part about like this, everybody trying to kind of like fit into these confines of what dating should be. When I first started to communicate with Nate, I had noticed a pattern in my dating life where like the ones that failed were the ones where like I tried to be all flirty. I was trying to be one way, you know what I'm saying? I was trying to impress. And when Nate got into the picture, I was like, all right, so I clearly need to do some work. I need to just be me. I need to just be myself. And I approached her as like a friend. We were just really good friends at the beginning. And that friendship kind of like evolved into what it is now. But because of that friendship at the beginning, we weren't following any type of like confine of what dating should be. We came to each other as our complete 100% selves and just kind of learned how to work with that. We weren't trying to hide any part of ourselves. We weren't trying to impress each other. We were just like, yo, this is me. This is you. I fuck with you. You fuck with me. Let's get it. You know?
That's real. No, the friendship portion of it, I think what the pandemic show was like, if you can't be friends with your partner, you got a lot of work to do. Especially the people who were, you've seen like domestic violence cases go up when Corona first hit, and both with like families and just individual relationships, like people in relationships, which I thought was very telling. Because it just showed you that you didn't know who you were in a relationship with if you couldn't be locked up in a room with them for X amount of hours. I thought that was very, very telling. But the friendship portion of it, I think, me, I'm an older man still. I might look youthful, but I'm 35, right? So I kind of, watched this social media age kind of happen kind of towards the tail end of my life. The instant gratification, I'm guilty of being a victim of wanting instant gratification. But I understand that instant gratification stays in the instant gratification shelf, and that the cultivation of things that are much more important is over here, and they shouldn't just hit my mic. They shouldn't overlap. And I say that you could take whatever you want from that, but learning somebody and actually being a friend with someone, like, let me take this for instance, like my wonder twin right above me, Miracle. I consult Miracle a lot with things because in the time that she's been at the organization, she's kind of helped smooth around a lot of the edges that I've had and questions that I have about Black women just in general, and this space of what I can and can't say as a Black man. Even though I'm light skinned, don't get it twisted. But with that, I've learned Miracle and I've created a relationship with Miracle, right? And that has allowed us to understand each other on a different level. In romance or anything like that, I think we look at that instant gratification. It's like, oh yeah, I'm attractive, you're attractive. You know what I'm saying? Let's knock these boots, let's beat this face, Ray. And then you kind of forget everything that like is there for. Like I'm 35 years old, right? I'm gonna be 36 this year, inshallah. I finally learned that after this many years on the planet, I can't just fuck someone I'm not interested in. I can't. Like, and there's a lot of men out here that's just like, that's where they go to. That doesn't mean I don't get, I've been on social media for a long time, so I'm missing some of the great things on Instagram, but that's better for me. That's better for me because, you know what I mean? Like, it's enticing. But again, it goes back to the insecurity issue. You get me? It's a lot of men out here that are afraid to meet their insecurities. And I got a really good friend of mine who be trying to hotep his way into every bedroom in the city. And I'm like, bruv, that shit isn't that, that might work for Dr. Umar because he got a little bit more money than you, but even his ticket getting punched soon. Like, you know what I mean? Even his ticket getting punched. It does. Remember the one sister that was the stripper? He was like, she seduced me. And like, lying. I'm just saying though, but everybody on this panel knows somebody that hotep themselves into some pussy and they be like, oh yeah, it's a corny approach. It's really a corny approach, but we see it's like niggas be thinking this woke shit. Miracle told me I didn't know until Miracle told me that niggas really be out here posting pro-Black and feminist updates just for the return investment. I didn't know that was a thing.
Obama said that in his own biography.
Absolutely.
I
don't fuck with that nigga, so I wouldn't read anything he said anyway.
I know, but he talked about that in his book.
For back in.
How he would use like feminist theory to talk to different girls. But what Farouk is talking about, when I first got hired, we had a conversation because I was like, I'm a person. I don't like to be talked to a certain way.
And I say some wild shit.
I was like, I see how you talk to other colleagues, but I talk about our traumas. I require people to talk to me a certain way because y'all think I'm nice, but I will cuss you out in 2.3 seconds. So to have a fun, nice working relationship, like this is how I like to be addressed. And and he was like, okay, sure. I was like, okay. Because they were like, my boss was like, I don't know if we can hire you if y'all don't get along because you have like alternate, like different personalities. But that has always worked for me. Like, saying at the very beginning of friendships, co-working situations, like I can't deal with certain types of behaviors. I can't deal with bigotry and ignorance. Like if you're like, stay away from me. Because saving you is not my ministry. Like I don't believe in
I'm not trying to heal a man, come whole, healed. And it's funny what you said, because it comes down to non-negotiables, right? So like, what do you want? It's not going to be perfect, but what can't you do? So for a long time, I would be flexible because, I'm a sucker for good looks. But it got to a point where my sister told me, she was like, well, if like Jesus is my homeboy, like if that's your thing, she compared it to, like Black Jesus for me is like noodles in spaghetti. And I know it's a weird analogy, but you can toss all these things into the pot. You can put here. You can toss in tomatoes.
Yeah, I was lost, Heather.
And mushrooms. But if you're missing noodles, then it's not. Is it spaghetti? No. So it's like you have to know what you can, I guess, go without. And that's one thing, I want someone that is grounded in their spirituality, knows who he is a Black man, knows, what, I step up as a single mom because there's not a man in the household, but I'm tired. I want a protector and provider. I like being single until last week when it snowed. So I think, we have to know like what we can negotiate, what we can compromise, because there's certain things like don't compromise just because you're in Pittsburgh. Date outside of the city. If there's not someone here that's not this unrealistic 101 things on the list that you got to check off, but if you can't find someone here, Pittsburgh is not the only here.
Oh, for sure.
And one thing I will say
by yourself if you try to just stick here. Yeah, were you saying Trouble? And I'm gonna.
I was just saying for the men. So one thing that I learned really, really early in my relationship, Nate she checked me so hard. She hit me with this line one day. I forget what was going on, but the line was, if you can't handle a bad bitch, why did you date one? And I was like,
well, I think I like her. I haven't even met her.
I was like, that hit me, bro.
I love it.
Yeah, it took me back. I was like, you know what? I really have to evaluate. You're right. I have to be willing to compromise and willing to change and face my weak ass insecurities and come to you strong enough to handle what I signed up for. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a man and you're dating, you have to be willing to compromise. You have to be willing to deal with the toxicity that exists within you, because there is some toxicity there. And we can't be acting all scared to acknowledge it. We can't act like it's not there. You have to be able to face it and face it head on, because if someone check you like that right now, I can name a couple of my homies who would not handle that well. You know what I'm saying?
One Hood Media will be launching Trouble in LS's dating show. We're dating advice for Black men. This is probably going to be coming up in April. So we're looking forward to that, Trouble.
Not yet. We still got a lot of learning to do. You know what I'm saying?
We all do.
There was a question earlier about like dating and out. But I would say outside of like dinner and a movie, go to a museum, take coffee and ice cream, go to the park, go do we could throw, there's like record rooms where you could break stuff on a date. You can do paint and sips. There's a whole bunch of dating things that people do outside of just dinner and a movie. You sit and ideate. You can go like when it's hot outside, you can go to the North Park and you can go bike riding. You can paddleboard.
May I interject real quick? Why the dinner and the movies is a terrible idea? I don't like anybody that taught during the cinema. I was a younger man. I left the date at the cinema because she kept asking questions, and I was like, I'm seeing this film for the first time, just like you are. So if you're gonna keep talking, I paid to hear them act, not hear you talk. So, I don't even, So, but I just don't think, you know what I mean? I just think like you're required to be quiet at a cinema. It's like a library. So like, if you're going to go on a date, you should already know that person to a cinema.
I think
we're dating in Rona. We keep talking. Go ahead.
Following what Farouk is saying, I think it's about knowing what you like to do, knowing thyself before you say, I want to jump into this commitment or this situation with another person. I know that I personally, I like to go places. There are things that I enjoy doing that are not represented in Pittsburgh. So I have to go different places. That doesn't mean that I need somebody flying me out somewhere. That doesn't mean that you need to have this huge budget for like expenses for doing whatever. But that does mean that I want you to be aware that you giving me Pittsburgh won't be enough. What's the stand like? I know I'm deserving of like the moon, the stars, and the sun, and people trying to give me Pittsburgh. They're trying to give me the North Side. Shout out to the North Side.
Right.
But like, I want more. I deserve more. I like more, and so that has to be a part of the thing that's going to keep me around. I have a question, as journalist, for the parents on the panel, right? I'm wondering, like, what are the conversations that you're having with your young ones or your young adults about dating, about expression, and specifically this one, but about like pleasure and like love and expression and all of that. Like, what are the conversations that you're having with them?
Definitely different than the ones I had with my mother, for sure. My daughter's 18. And so, she was 8 when, her dad and I broke up. And so, she's gotten a chance to see this. It was interesting. One time she said to me, and I wasn't seeing anybody, and she said, Mom, I heard you on the phone talking about you're not dating and taking care of me. And she was maybe 10 or 11. She said, don't blame me for this. This doesn't have anything to do with me. She said, I want somebody that's going to take you out, that's going to be nice to you, that's going to bring you flowers, and that's going to care for you. And this has nothing to do with me. So please don't tell anybody else that has anything to do with me. I want you to have all those things. And I was like, whoa. And it really has opened up a space that we talk in a very authentic way about, and obviously appropriate, but she's 18, has never had her first date. So she's this beautiful Black woman, smart, and she's having similar things as a teenager as I'm having, at this point in my life. But she's very optimistic. Mom, I ain't worried about it. I'm going away to college. It'll be fine. I'm not going to die. But we do have very, serious conversations about loving herself and not allowing herself to be judged or molded so much by the need for relationships. And she's probably one of the most confident people I've ever met.
It's funny that she said that to you, because I think as a mom, sometimes you go through this period where you forget you're a woman, and it's just like, mom, like every picture I posted, mommy and me yoga, mommy and me this. And my friends were like, girl, show a little cleavage. Remember, you're still single. And I think it was a wake-up call to remember that you need that time and that you're not guilty. I moved back to Pittsburgh because of my family support system. So I do have babysitters, fortunately, but, just reminding ourselves that, that we are deserving as Black women, as single Black mothers of love, and that love is out there. And, I don't really introduce, like, Kate, my daughter probably thinks like, oh, mommy has a lot of friends over the years, because I'm not going to bring somebody into her life unless it's something serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, mine's pushing me out of the nest, not the other way. And so, I mean, if you have those kind of healthy relationships, because we can make our kids really vulnerable if we tell them they're not whole unless they've got a partner. And I think we really need to be careful with that language. So any last tips before we roll out? This has been a wonderful conversation. The chat has been jumping. People are really appreciating the fact that we're touching on this. It was kind of a iffy on it. We were like, oh, this is not our norm. But, it's apparent that this is something people really wanted to talk about. So anybody want to leave us with some advice on your way out?
Know your worth and add X.
Okay.
Spread love.
Know your worth and act on it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to heal and know yourself before you jump into wanting to have a serious relationship with one person or many people. I think that sometimes because of the situation of what and how Pittsburgh functions, it may require you to leave the city. Pittsburgh will always be here. You know what I'm saying? It ain't going nowhere. For your favorite places may be gone. The gentrification is real. But Pittsburgh will always be here. And I think whenever you show the universe or you open yourself up to like what you want and you start putting in that work, like whatever is meant for you is going to come. So like be you, be nice, be love. Don't be homophobic. Don't be disrespectful. Don't be toxic, and drink water.
And drink water, she says.
I just seen Summer say something on here, and just real quick, I've only dated one person from Pittsburgh, and I've only dated 2 Americans. So Summer, I feel you. It's a very difficult thing. But one thing I noticed is like people that like to travel. I know Sister Jordan, you're in Barbados, so you're someplace foreign right now, and large up to you. But I've noticed that people that like to travel and people that aren't from Pittsburgh tend to find themselves in a nice relationship in Pittsburgh because we always run into each other. So there's always kind of like that nice, like, oh, you like to travel? I'm not from here neither. Let's link. So that exists. So I think it's not hopeless. If you come to Pittsburgh, it might seem hopeless because the way the weather look, but there is hope.
That's me and Nate right there. You know what I'm saying? She's not from Pittsburgh. I'm from Pittsburgh and I love to travel. You know what I'm saying? I was fortunate enough to meet her here in Pittsburgh. But you know what I'm saying, I feel like if I had to give some type of advice before I go, if you're single and you're looking for a relationship, just know that the relationship is not going to be all, rainbows and roses. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to encounter things within you that stem from relationship trauma. And you're going to have to work through that. Be patient with yourself. Just know that, like, dating is all fun and games, but like, you have to really know what you want. Make sure you're prepared for that stuff to come up and you're prepared to deal with it. And that's try one and less. Never lose sight.
Yep.
I guess my thought would be, what energy are you sending out? I noticed when I first relocated, because I've lived overseas. I've lived, worked as a television reporter. But when I came back, it's like, woe is me. But that was the energy that I put out. And I think men pick up on that, right? So if you're not secure, if you're not confident, if you don't love the skin you're in, people pick up on that. And when you put out, I think when I put out more of a positive energy, there's more opportunities that open up. And to be self-serving and, represent for some of my single mom members in the chat. Someone said we need a part 2, and we really should do like a virtual speed dating something, because it's COVID and folks are single and there are men and women out there. So put that on the One Hood agenda.
We will listen. I am there for a speed dating event. I'm doing a Zoom speed dating type conversation later, but it's for conversations, not dating. So we can do breakout rooms. We can set people up. We could do a timer. I'm all for it. If you like it, I love it.
Graphic for you.
But we will do that in a part 2. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. So we want to thank all of our esteemed panelists for joining us. Make sure you follow up with everyone. And so I'm going to do our wrap up as was the same that we do on Monday night. So coming up next week, lies tomorrow, Wednesday at 6 o'clock, we have This Week in White Supremacy. And then at 7:30, we have Athletes Against Anti-Semitism, which Farouk and Jasiri will be a part of a conversation to talk about how we can speak out against anti-Semitism. On Thursday at noon, we have the state of Black mental health with the great Danielle Brown and therapist Julius Boatwright at Thursdays at noon. So please tune in. We also have Ask a Black Doctor this Thursday at 7 o'clock. And so we have all of these great programs. Please tune into our live streams on Facebook and YouTube. And we also have a very special event on Saturday from 12 to 2 with PSL's Nino Brown talking about art and engagement. And we have something new. Trouble, are you still on? Do you want to talk about what Vibe Check on Friday is going to be?
I would love to. So the Vibe Check on Friday is a Clubhouse conversation. I set up One Hood a Clubhouse account. We're going to be in there just talking about the vibe of the week, setting an intention for the vibe of the next week to come, and making sure that we are moving throughout our weeks with more intentions and just having a space to kind of share where we're at,
So that is pretty cool. So that's some of the events that we have. So we're going to ask that everyone, have fun, stay home. Please be safe with the weather. If you are going to date, make sure you wear a mask. We had Ask a Black Doctor a couple weeks ago. Tell people if they're going to go out to wear a mask. After that, is Dr. Cheryl back? There she is, the magic of technology.
I just came back to say goodbye. The whole Wi-Fi just disappeared. But thank you for doing that wrap and providing that information. Just saying, when you say stay, if you're talking about wear a mask, wear a little bit of everything to ensure that you're safe if you're dating. And I'll end on that note. But we're going to continue our education series, which we're going to be building on that at least once a month, doing some things on education. So keep checking us out. All right, I'm out. You go take care of your dog, and I'm going to go take care of my kid. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
All right, bye. Rajala, you were doing so good.